A British-based neonatal nurse has been found guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to kill 6 more, making her the worst child serial killer in modern British history and raising urgent questions over whether her crimes could have been stopped. Lucy Letby, 33, was convicted of the persistent, calculated, and cold-blooded murder of 5 premature boys and 2 newborn girls on the unit where she worked at the Countess of Chester Hospital in northwest England. Letby was in her mid-20s when she preyed on highly vulnerable babies between June 2015 and June 2016, often attacking them just moments after their parents or nurses had left their side. Police were finally contacted in 2017 and she was arrested in 2018. Her victims included 2 identical triplet brothers, killed within 24 hours of each other, a newborn weighing less than 1 kilogram who was fatally injected with air, and a girl born 10 weeks premature who was murdered on the 4th attempt. Bereaved parents gasped and wept in the public gallery as the verdicts were delivered over several dramatic days at Manchester Crown Court, after one of the longest-running murder trials in recent times. Outside court, parents of the victims said justice had been served but that no conviction would take away from the extreme hurt, anger and distress that we have all had to experience. Letby is expected to become only the 3rd woman alive in the UK to be handed a whole life term, meaning she will never be released from prison, when she is sentenced on Monday. Police believe Letby may have harmed more babies during her 6-year career as a children's nurse and have launched a helpline for parents to call to report concerns. Detectives have asked specialists to examine the records of more than 4,000 infants born at Liverpool Women's Hospital and the Countess of Chester, the 2 hospitals where Letby worked between 2010 and 2016. One mother said on Friday night that she believed Letby attacked her newborn son a day after she made a complaint about an inappropriate comment by the nurse. Lindsay Artell, who was herself a nurse at the Countess of Chester at the time, said that Letby was eavesdropping on a conversation about the progress her son was making, when she said, "I don't like parents getting their hopes up because we never know what could happen at this stage." Artell said she was furious and complained. The following day, she said, her son suddenly deteriorated and his insulin levels had spiked, just like in the cases of 2 babies Letby was convicted of poisoning. She said police had investigated her son's decline but decided not to bring charges. Pascal Jones, a senior prosecutor at the Crown Prosecution Service, said Letby's attacks were a complete betrayal of the trust placed in her and that she had perverted her learning and weaponized her craft to inflict harm, grief and death. Letby refused to return to court to hear the later verdicts but at an earlier verdict hearing had bowed her head and sobbed while her mother, Susan, cried loudly and said, "You cannot be serious, this cannot be right." The trial heard how Letby murdered newborns by injecting air into their tiny bodies, in some cases shattering their diaphragms, or in one case by pushing a tube down an infant's throat. She tried to kill 2 babies by lacing their feeding bags with insulin. One of the babies was the size of an adult hand, weighing just over 535 grams, when she was born 15 weeks premature and given a 5% chance of survival. Letby tried to kill the girl twice, the first attempt just hours after she and the family had marked her 100th day of life with a celebratory cake, and the second on what would have been her due date 2 weeks later. Letby was found not guilty of a 3rd count of attempted murder against her. The little girl, known as Child G, was diagnosed with quadriplegic cerebral palsy after the attacks. Now 8, she is nil by mouth and requires 24-hour care. Her parents gasped when the guilty verdicts were returned to a packed and silent courtroom. They handed out tissues, as relatives of the other victims cried and held each other. The mother of twin boys, who walked in on Letby attacking one of her sons, bent over and sobbed as the nurse was found guilty of murdering one of her 6-day-old babies and attempting to kill his brother the following day. Another baby was 24 hours old when Letby injected him with air, killing him just 90 minutes after she had started her shift. She tried to kill his twin sister the next day. None of the victims or their families can be named for legal reasons. Letby consistently denied the charges, telling jurors she was devastated by the allegations and, "I only ever did my best to care for them. I'm here to help and to care, not to harm," Letby said. But after a trial lasting 10 months, the jury of 7 women and 4 men decided she was guilty of attacks that the prosecution described as persistent, calculated, and cold-blooded. Parents of 2 of Letby's victims said the nurse behaved strangely as they spent their final moments with their murdered babies. The mother of a newborn girl, who weighed about 1 kilogram at birth, recalled Letby smiling and offering to take photographs as they bathed their daughter. She later sent the family a sympathy card and took a photograph of it on her phone. Another parent told the trial that a nurse he believed to be Letby interrupted their final moments with their little boy by trying to place him in a ventilator basket, meant for dead babies, even though he was still breathing. She allegedly told the grieving parents, "You've said your goodbyes. Do you want me to put him in here?" The medical director at the Countess of Chester Hospital, Dr. Nigel Scone, said, "We are extremely sorry that these crimes were committed at our hospital, and our thoughts continue to be with all the families and loved ones of the babies who came to harm or died. Our staff are devastated by what happened, and we are committed to ensuring lessons continue to be learned."